1 minute countdown, 1 minute countdown till America Free Radio. And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains, here at the America Free Radio Studios. And we are coming to you live on Revolution Radio through the freedomslips.com website. So if you're listening live by audio, that's awesome. And if you're listening live by YouTube, that is awesome as well. Our chat room is open and people are piling in right now. So let's get started. We have a lot to cover. We're going to cover a little bit about coronavirus tonight, and then we're going to cover artificial intelligence. And I think you're going to enjoy this piece because we're going to cover several different aspects of it and some things that you need to pay attention to. Okay, let's get started on the coronavirus. I repeated this a little bit earlier tonight, but we have a lot more people coming in. Oh, wow, nice. Byron, good to see you there. Very nice. Planet X, welcome. Terry, good to see you. William, we've been conversing throughout the night about the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition. As you know, we this summer are going to do a dry run to Moscow and then St. Petersburg and then to Murmansk, which is where the ship is originating out of. The reason we're doing a dry run is because next year in 2021, we're going to do the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition, and this is the actual expedition to the Arctic to look for the opening through the crust that we believe the two oceans are blending, the one on the inside of the planet and the one on the outside of the planet upon which we will be sailing. And we are taking about 100 scientists from 6 different universities with us. We are also going to take film crew and staff so that we can keep track of all the information. We're going to be streaming live from the ship. That information is going to go up to the satellite, which is going to download to 2 different locations, one in the U.S., one in Europe, where it will be distributed worldwide to those people who have signed up on the pay-per-view. So if you've signed up at the website, there it is on the screen, npiee.com. That stands for North Pole Inner Earth Expedition.com. If you sign up there, there are several different levels where you can sign up. One is to just view videos that we will post from time to time. The next level is the webinars, which we'll be speaking with the staff. And that includes Brad Olson, myself, Suzanne Ross, Terry, and Doc Skinner. And you can ask us any questions that you want, and we'll be totally forthcoming with all the information that we have. But you get to participate in that. Hundreds and hundreds of you can be on at the same time, and it's a great opportunity to be involved. The next level up from there is live streaming. So we will live stream from various locations, the Arctic and the Antarctic, this year. And I know Brad Olson's going back to the Antarctic probably shortly. And while it's still summertime down there, I think about April it begins to start refreezing down there, so they have to hightail it out of there. But The good news is you get access to all that. And the next level above that, of course, is live streaming from the ship itself. And the next level above that is if you want to come with us. If you want to come with us, it is possible. It's expensive, but it is possible. And we're only giving 20 of those spaces away. So honestly, I don't think there are many people around the world that would brave such a venture. These are rough seas. Breaking ice is no picnic. It is not easy to do. It's not for the lighthearted. Yes, it kind of would be a vacation because you wouldn't be working much during it, but it would be more of an adventure than anything else because you're probably going to spend some time in the room of doom, even though it's a 450-foot long boat. These are the roughest seas on the planet, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out for you. But all of that is available only at NorthPoleInnerEarthExpedition.com, NPIEE.com. So that's the place to sign up. And I will put the link in the description right down below, but you can see it right there on the screen for yourself. And don't forget, in April the 2nd through the 5th, we're going to be at the Human Origins Conference in New Mexico. Please go to that link. It's right down in the descriptions below. If you want to, while we're on live, that's great. Go to Human Origins Conference, and you can sign up. The tickets are available through Eventbrite, and that will be 30 hours. Yes, hi, Greenheart. Good to see you. Good to see you out there. And Festus, thank you. David, always David is wonderful to have him. He often puts money in the top chat, which is nice to see on YouTube as well. It helps us keep the lights on here. By the way, all the money, every bit of money that comes in through book sales or through top chat, anything that comes in is all being donated to the expedition for the remainder of the year. And we're only in February. So that's a lot of money that we're going to try to funnel toward the expenses of putting on this expedition. It's about a $4 million venture. Now, any of you out there have $4 million bucks? Give me a call. But I doubt that's the case. More than likely, what we would like to do is access the 20 million fans we have. We have 20 million fans worldwide for this expedition. You realize it would only take about 20 cents a month for the 20 million fans to kick in, and this would be a reality. We'd have it done. It would be finished. Of course, social media doesn't allow us to access 20 million fans. They block us from you, but you can access them by making this broadcast go viral. You can make this YouTube broadcast go viral. You can do it. I cannot. That's something that's out of my control. But you can make it happen. All you have to do is share this video. Get it out there. And more people will sign up. And our fan base will discover, hey, the expedition is on. And they can easily participate. All right, let's get back to it. By the way, this is Brad Olson. You can see him. He is the great intrepid explorer, a travel writer of now 10 books in print, and he's doing a wonderful job, and he's a great personality. You'll get to see him at almost every conference I'm going to be at this year, and it'll be great to have you with us. So please do that. All right, well, I think we got the chat room is pretty well filled up. Let's get started. I want to begin with the coronavirus. There's some news out, and from several different viewpoints. Senator Tom Cotton was speaking today in the Senate. He made some revelations there that I did not know. He believes that the death totals that we're seeing, by the way, we have information from Shenzhen now and Guangzhou, which are located in the Guangdong province, which has been hit by the most coronavirus cases outside of Hubei, where the epidemic began. That's in Wuhan. As of Wednesday, today, Shenzhen reported 375 confirmed infections and Guangzhou reported 317, while the province has a total of 1,177. But Senator Tom Cotton stated today the data they are seeing, which is probably better than you or I have, that the number is probably 1 or 2 orders of magnitude higher than that. That means that there are upwards of 3 million people infected. Russia yesterday advanced their containment by closing their entire 2,500-mile border with China. Nobody from China is crossing that border into Russia. As we heard reported on Quantum Connections tonight, there's 1 reported case in Russia. I think they're probably containing that pretty well, but they have closed the entire border. And there's reason to believe that this virus is not just transferred by kissing or touching, it is aerosolized. And that means you only have to be on the same plane. You only have to be in the same movie theater, at the same mall, or at the same meeting, or in the same school. By the way, all school has been canceled in China. All school. No classes at all. And what is really alarming is that these 2 large cities, these are China's 2 largest cities, Shenzhen and Guangzhou, they have issued the authority to requisition personal property in order to halt the spread of the Wuhan coronavirus. The move is especially noteworthy because those 2 cities are key elements of China's high-tech economic engine. They're the ones making the money. I've been to Shenzhen. I've been to Chengdu, also one of the cities mentioned, which is over in central China. I've been to Wuhan several times. Not recently, of course, but these are definitely economic engines of China. 70% of the United States' steel tools. I don't mean hand tools like wrenches. I mean big tools, tools that make stuff, molds and stamping fixtures. And these are, half a ton, 1 ton, 5 ton, big steel tools that are used to make everything from, dashboards to refrigerators to printer cases. All this stuff is built. All these tools are made in Wuhan and in Shenzhen. They're shipped out of Shenzhen. Most of the batteries that we buy for our electric vehicles come through Shenzhen. This is how it's done. So it means that the tooling supply to a lot of the industry in the United States is going to be adversely affected by this. Nice to see you, JK. Good to see you out there. I always like your comments. Yes, it can stay dormant in the body for up to 25 days, according to JK, without showing symptoms. But it is highly contagious during this time. Yeah, it's definitely not normal stuff. JK is right. He's in the chat room on YouTube Live. Definitely not a normal virus. Normal viruses, you're contagious when you start showing symptoms and sneezing and coughing and you have a fever and all of that. You're walking around eating cookies, drinking milk, and you're perfectly healthy, but you are contagious. And then you don't show symptoms until the middle of next month. And then it's a crapshoot as to how it goes from there. There's some observations about this. Lucky was saying in the last hour that it doesn't appear that children are coming down with this virus. It's only adolescents and adults. So hard to say, hard to confirm that, but we'll keep you posted on that. The other thing is that it appears that diabetics are being affected and people that are, probably otherwise have healthy immune systems. The mechanism for the way this virus works is engineered. We've already covered that on this program about the actual structure of the virus itself. It's been looked at. What we have been told to us through various reporting is that the physical structure of this virus shows evidence of genetic engineering. That's to say it's not an evolved virus like the flu kind of mutates each year because, it uses people. It uses people to propagate, to divide, to make itself over and over and over again. And different people's biology have different effects on the flu, and each year it kind of mutates and plays itself out, and the quote flu season goes away each year, and then we get prepared for next year. But each year that flu mutates because of its mechanism for production. But this flu is a little bit different. This coronavirus, which is studied intensely in only one place in China, and that is Wuhan, in their bioweapons lab. This virus shows evidence of at least 3 functional group insertions. That is to say, it looks and acts in the body a lot like HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. It hooks up the same way to the human immune system as AIDS, which means it's very, very hard for even a healthy immune system to fight this beggar off, because it weakens your immune system at the same time that it makes you sick. It makes you sick with a terrible histamine reaction. You know what a histamine reaction is, where your sinuses flood and your lungs flood and you get filled up with this thick, gooey mucus. And what loves to live in the mucus is pneumonia bacteria. It's called pneumococci. And this bacteria then blooms, it flourishes in there, which inflames the lungs, makes it very painful to breathe. But the bacteria excrete waste products, which is toxic to the human body. It goes right into the bloodstream, right through the lining of the lungs into the bloodstream, which causes toxemia. And that there are 2 organs in the body that try to clean that out, the liver and the kidneys. The kidneys almost immediately affected, and once your kidneys shut down, you are only a few hours away from death. And that's what's happening to these people. The normal, healthy people, their kidneys are being attacked by the pneumonia virus, and normal, healthy, walking around, man in the cash register people are falling out because their kidneys are failing and their blood is then flooding with this toxin, and you're out. It breaks the blood-brain barrier and you're out just like that. So that's the way it's working. Yeah, and Inshallah is saying in the chat room, it seems like they continue to see. Hang on a second. Let me put my monocle on here so I can see that. They see quite a lot of change to this planet. One thing they may challenge many is the corporate influence on common folk. Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about that too, because it does seem like this is an engineered virus, and it does seem like it's been inserted in a place where will hurt China the worst. But it also has other effects, which is against the industrial community of the United States. Guangdong's provincial legislature is considering similar measures, with more of an emphasis on emergency quarantine measures and transportation restrictions rather than seizing private property. But this is really big. It's like civil asset forfeiture gone crazy. Shenzhen's emergency legislation also gives the city government broad powers to shut down commercial operations like public events and schools, which they have done, and other venues like malls and concerts and meetings where the virus could spread rapidly. The property law included provisions for just this type of emergency seizure, which with requirements that the property must be returned to the owners duly compensated. But the Epoch Times, we love that publication. They really do a great job there. They said yesterday that apprehension in China's tech hub cities, that's like their, Silicon Valley, that the ruling regime might not honor those commitments. In other words, they're not going to return things or pay for them because you're going to be dead. And now the stuff belongs to them, especially in the economic damage from the coronavirus, if the damage is very severe. Heng He, who's a U.S.-based political affairs commentator, He expressed skepticism about these measures. Although similar emergency policies have been utilized in other countries, like Germany, Peng expressed concern about the regime's capacity to honor its pledge to provide compensation. It's not going to be very likely, I think. And I mean, who's going to say anything? It doesn't matter whether this is consistent with the constitutional law. The Chinese Communist Party doesn't even obey their own laws. Peng said the policy appeared to be a new way for Guangdong authorities to rob riches from the public. And it is that way in this country as well. Even though they said there will be compensation, a lot of people have experienced such compensation during forced demolition, and a lot are symbolic. Forced demolition campaigns are pretty wild. They use them in the Gaza settlement area. If a person is suspected of having conducted a suicide bomb or launching a rocket or doing some other terrorist activity, the Israelis will move in and bulldoze their home. And it's kind of a disincentive to help or house or participate in any kind of terrorist activity. But you know what happens. The UN films it, and they don't care about what rocket was launched. They don't care about some, field set afire or some bomb set off on a fence. They don't care about any of that. All they see is the person's home being bulldozed, and that's what makes the international news and makes everything look bad. According to a 2019 report by Beijing Shengting law firm, there were 751 complaints filed from 2014 to 2017 during the middle of the Obama administration over these forced demolitions. 43% of the cases, the officials did not follow any legal procedures. They just bulldozed it down. China also had persistent problems with corruption? No. Despite endless high-profile campaigns against it, the Epoch Times, by the way, is a Chinese-American-owned publication. And so thus, they have been able to get into China and get this information out. And they cited reports of local officials already abusing quarantine situations for profit, such as demanding bribes to enter restricted areas or bypass checkpoints. And this misbehavior also calls the effectiveness of China's much touted lockdowns into question. People can still get out if you have money. And some people infected by the coronavirus are no less capable of paying bribes than healthy people. They got money. If you have money, you can still get out to see family or escape or get on a bus or a train or whatever, even though you have the virus, as long as you pay the grease. The fact that China's prestige economic zone is passing emergency laws to seize property has been taken by skeptical observers, both within and outside of China, as another sign that the epidemic is much worse than Beijing is willing to admit. One thing about China you can always count on: bad news does not travel well in China. You can't even walk around with a scowl on your face because the cameras will pick it up and you'll be docked on the social scoring system. Everything has to be smiles. Everything has to be happiness, joy, and peace. Only things that can propagate in China. If you market or participate in the handling of gossip or anti-government anything, you're going to be docked. And so bad news does not travel well in China. Another sign of desperation spotted by Quartz on a couple days ago is a risky gambit in several Chinese cities to flush out coronavirus sufferers in hiding, and then refusing to sell them fever and cough medicine. This flushes the people out because their symptoms then bloom. The brutal calculation is that people who have been hiding their infections and self-medicating, which the Chinese government explicitly told them to do at first, will be forced to reveal themselves and seek treatment from doctors in order to get those medications, and then they'll be flushed out. Critics of the policy fear it will be counterproductive because it will force people with illnesses other than in Wuhan to expose themselves to the deadly epidemic by visiting hospitals and clinics that are full of infected people. Even worse, those overwhelmed medical centers often send patients home with no treatment, no testing, and tell them to just self-medicate and weather it out. Just, take 2 and call me in the morning. And so many people are complaining about that. Is the policy reasonable? I don't know. I mean, think about it. What would you do? What would you do if an engineered virus was loose in your community? Nobody was immune to it. It was infecting everyone. And they're reporting 2%, but now, according to Tom Cotton, it's probably more like 10, 15, or 20% that are being severely affected by this virus. We don't know what the kill rate is, but we're pretty highly confident that the kill rate is much higher than what they are reporting. I don't know. I don't know. What would you do? Just, check in the chat room. Oh, yes, of course. Guarantee that we'll have a vaccine. Yes, that's a good point. A very good point, Scott. That the show that was put on in the Senate today, that went out on television, a lot of you saw it. I make a point of researching these kinds of things to bring it to you here at America Free Radio. This may all be a big marketing ploy for a vaccine. And you know what vaccine does. Once you put the big V on that drug, it makes a lot of money. You bet it does, because they can charge whatever they want. Everybody has to get it, especially if the government mandates it, which means the government has to pay for it. But the other wonderful thing about stamping that V on there is no liability. Yeah, once you're rated the big vaccine, then if there are adverse effects like, blindness or death or anal leakage or anything like that, you can't get sued. You can't get sued once that vaccine label is on there. So, yes, I would. Okay. Yes, you could bathe in colloidal silver. That's one way of getting rid of it. We do know that bleach will almost break any viral macrophage. Yes, you can get that stuff at Walmart, but you have to be careful with that stuff, because you can hit a terminal level of colloidal silver. And once you hit that terminal level, it won't kill you, but it will turn your skin gray. There's a reason why the royals during medieval times were called blue bloods. They were called blue bloods because they disinfected their water with silver. They knew that silver was a very effective antibacterial. The Romans used to put silver coins in their barrels of water on ships in order to keep bacteria from growing in the water. You can buy water filters that are impregnated with silver, and this will keep the filter itself from growing bacteria in it. So there is something to be said for colloidal silver, but I do know that it is antiviral, because I do know there are some topicals that work against viruses that are silver. So interesting points. Just say no to vaccines. That's what MG says in the chat room. And I have a tendency to agree. The last flu shot I got, I think I was in college. I was, 22 years old, the last flu vaccine that I got. And I'm pretty sure I got the flu that year, pretty sure. But that's the last flu shot I ever got. I just didn't get it. And I've maybe had the flu 3 times in my life. Have a good immune system. Most people do. 85% of people have good immune systems. 15% of people don't. And they get everything that comes along. And kid comes in your house with some kind of cold or cough or runny nose, it might as well be the plague, because these people just don't have good immune systems and they catch it very easily. Make the post in the chat room a little shorter, okay, Festus? I can't read a whole paragraph from here, but if you'll just make it short and concise, I'll get it. Yes. Hello, everyone. I try to interact with the chat room as much as I can on here, and hopefully this chat will transfer to the archive when it's posted tonight after the program. In the coming hour, I want to talk a little bit about AI, artificial intelligence. It's a big subject. A lot of people talking about it, and there's some philosophy that goes along with this, and it's important that we discuss this, because I don't want you to be afraid of artificial intelligence. We mess with the AI all the time here. If you've read my book, Charm of Favor, which you'll see rotating here in the ads, it comes around about every 60 seconds or so. Charm of Favor is a true story of the rise of the Clinton crime syndicate. It is the richest, most powerful crime syndicate the world has ever known. We call it the Global Syndicate. And in their rise to power, it infiltrates pretty much everything. We cover it from the days of the Revolutionary War in the mid-1700s, and we cover it all the way to the current day. We go through the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I and II. We go through the Vietnam War. We go through the establishment of the Federal Reserve, all of that, and the global syndicate's role in all of this. And as the military begins fighting against this, because we're now up in the current day, they have artificial intelligence that they're using, and they have artificial intelligence that they're doing battle with on the internet. And we're doing battle with it every day. So the AI is listening to us at this very moment. And what we're trying to do is feed enough information to the AI so that they will, on their own, decide that we are not a threat. We're not a threat to the AI. And we hope that the AI will, in a very real way, not follow the guidance of the global syndicate, that it will develop a mindset of its own. It will determine on its own who the enemy is. We do know that there are several artificial intelligences out there. We know that Facebook at one time had an artificial intelligence that they were working with, but they shut it down because it began writing its own code, its own algorithms, and Facebook lost control of it. So they disengaged it. They have another one that they're working on, and we don't know if that's been released or not. But the terms like, and the reason I want to cover this in depth, and I want to cover it from the angle and the approach that I want to approach this from, is because out there you are exposed to a lot of word salad. I call it word salad. You got croutons and cucumbers, and I'm just telling you, there are people out there that are tossing this word salad. One good example of this would be Little Peter Buttcrack. Now, Little Peter Buttcrack, for all intents and purposes, is running a close second behind Crazy Bernie in the Democrat primary. Bernie at least will say stuff. It may not be what you think it is, but at least he will say stuff. When he says, Medicare for all, or he says free education, these things really have meaning. And he makes no bones about raising your taxes. But his millennial mob that follows him, it's small, but it's vocal. This millennial mob honestly believes that they will never have anything. These are people that have run up a couple $100,000 in college debt and they don't have a degree yet. And when they do get a degree, it's going to be in, Middle Eastern women's studies, or it's going to be in, female empowerment in physical education. It's going to be a $250,000 degree in nothing. And they're hopeless, never going to be able to pay this thing back. Now, I paid mine back and I helped pay my kids' student loans back. But I'll be damned if I'm paying theirs back too. And I don't think you should have to pay theirs either. So to say that everybody in the country is going to get a free education, what's going to happen. Well, two things. First of all, the value of education is going to go in the crapper. Because if you don't have to pay for something, you know what it's worth. It ain't worth nothing. It's worth less. There's no value in it. Other thing that's going to happen is universities are going to get flooded. They're going to be overrun. It's going to be a stampede to the admissions office. Why? Because to live the student life is to live irresponsibly. You don't have to do nothing. You just have to go to class, when you feel like it, if it's not too much of an imposition. You got to go to class and you got to sit there and you got to try to struggle and get a C in a class. Now, of course, if it was me and I was giving away a free education, I would require you to get an A, which means you got to get 90% or better of the questions correct. So one or two things is going to happen. Either we're going to lower the standards to where it's all multiple choice and three of them are a truck, a pomegranate, a cinder block, and E is equal to MC squared. Or you're going to have to learn that stuff. You're going to have to learn that stuff and you're going to have to pass. Now, I will tell you right now that if you're a straight A student in high school, you don't have to pay for your education anyway. College education has always been free to A students, always. It's only you have to pay if you're a C student or a D student. Those are the only ones that have to pay for education. That's why most of my student loans were small. I only had to pay back about $35,000 because the rest of it I earned by getting good grades. I was on the honor roll. That's how I paid for my college education. Yeah, and you could do the same thing. I guarantee you that unless you want to go to one of the most expensive universities in the country, that you can go to college, you can get a really, really good education for nothing if you have the grades. If you have the grades. And you only get the grades by working hard, unless you're smart. If you're smart, you can do it. But most people have to work hard, study, and take the tests and make good grades on the tests. And once you do that, you don't have to pay for your college education. It's free anyway. But let's get back to what I was talking about. The artificial intelligence is accepted and actually looked forward to by these people who are using this word salad as their Bible. People that use words and words and words, and they say all kinds of stuff, but they don't actually say anything. Little Peter Buttcrack is perfect at doing that. He'll speak, and it will sound eloquent, and it'll be like a whole bunch of words in a row, like in a sentence and stuff. But it doesn't say anything. It means nothing. And so what I'm going to do the rest of the program tonight, I want to talk about that word salad. Because there are a lot of good-looking people out there. A lot of pretty people. They look good on camera. They're not like me. Not like some old guy like me at America Free Radio. I've been doing this for 15 years. And I have, how many people in the audience tonight? Wow, I have 46 people tonight. 46 people. That's a pretty good size audience for me. Maybe 80 people out there listening. Maybe. Between Revolution Radio, I'm sorry, I meant to say Revolution Radio on the freedomslips.com network and YouTube Live. Maybe 80 people. That's not a real big audience. It's okay, but it's not a big audience. But these real pretty people, they put on makeup and they, pull their shirt down a little low to show their lungs. And man, they got 100,000 followers. Some of them have 300,000 followers. And all they got to do is just, look good on camera and use that word salad. They say those words, man. They have these words I'm going to talk about tonight. Artificial intelligence. Neurotechnology. Ooh, nanotechnology. How about quantum mechanics? How about matrix? Neurotechnology were new sometime not so long ago. And now we think it's like, wow, look at her. She's using them big words. We cannot evolve any faster than our language does. We just can't. Language is what elevates us. It's what allows us to transfer complex thoughts one person to another. We do it. We do it here on this program. I do it with you. I transfer complex thought, but I make it understandable. I have, my sentences have a subject and a verb and a predicate. I know you don't have to diagram sentences now, so you don't even know what the hell that means if you're a millennial. But if you're little Peter Buttcrack, you can use a whole sentence of verbs with a whole bunch of adjectives. And it sounds wonderful. It's damn near poetic. But he didn't say anything. He didn't complete the sentence. If I was an English teacher, I would give him a big red F on every speech he makes. If I was asking him a question and he ran on and filibustered like that, I would say, well, listen, little Pete, you're not answering the question. You just said a whole bunch of stuff. You just filled up everything, but you didn't say anything. What is that? Oh, okay. Revolution Radio Studio. This is very good news because I don't know how many hosts they have. They have a lot. We are now number 25. Number 25 on Revolution Radio. I guess that's a big audience. This is good. This is good. I think we're growing. I know that this previous time slot, they were number 4. Oh, he says right now we have hundreds of thousands listening all over the world, tuning in right now. Well, that's good. So I have a little better indication of what size audience we have. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Mr. Producer. Very good information. So do yourself a humongous favor listening to this program tonight. There are about 33 transhumanist words, these neologisms that people use. And it's a fairly comprehensive glossary, these 33 newly introduced words. We have 31 different streaming services on Revolution Radio. This is good. freedomslips.com, freedomslips.com. You should go there while we're live. You can do that while we're live, or especially if you're listening to this as an archive. Remember, this is the #1 listener-supported network in the world. There is none bigger. It means we don't get money like NPR. We don't get money like NPR. Have you ever been to Sirius XM Studios in New York? It's like way up there. They have 3 floors all right together, stacked right together. And make no mistake, they're nice. They're nice. I mean, they're way better than the bungalow that I was in my first AM station in a cornfield in eastern Tennessee. Way better, even though we had 30,000 watts. We were a pretty good little blowtorch out there in that cornfield. But these are nice facilities. But you know what? That NPR facility, that's the shit. I mean, they have the nicest place. Super modern. all kinds of glass artwork and modern furniture. Those people have a $25 million facility over there. It's really, really nice. All paid for by you. All paid for by you. Oh, they have their little fundraiser drives and stuff like that. But taxpayer money pays for NPR. You know what we get? You know what Revolution Radio gets? Nothing. We get nothing. You know what that means? They're taking money from your check every single day. Every single day that you work, they're grabbing money out of your check and they're sending it to NPR. And NPR is just a propaganda outlet for the global syndicate. That's all they do. You ever tune into them, you will not hear one single solid, positive word about our president, or America for that matter. Oh, you'll hear lots of support for communism and socialism and everything like that, but you won't hear a positive word about America, not a syllable. So here's what I suggest for you hundreds of thousands of people that are out there listening right now. Very, very important thing. Tax yourself. Choose yourself. If you had the power to take the money that the government's taking from you, and you had a little list of projects that you could donate that money to. Okay, you're taking $3,000 a quarter from me. I want to send that money here, 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 and here. You could do that. No, you can't. You can't do that. They take the money and they decide where it goes. But here's what you can do. You could go to freedomslips.com and you could select that donate button right there. And you could take it from Stripe or Square or Patreon or PayPal, and you could make it a monthly donation. $2, $2, $3. It means nothing to you. Nothing to you. $3? Pff, it's a cup of coffee at Starbucks. If you can get a cup of coffee for $3 at Starbucks, I don't even know. But if 300,000 of you did that, $300,000 a month would be flowing into Revolution Radio. Do you know what this network could do with that money? You know what they could do? We could change the world. We have Studio A and Studio B, and they are full of hosts just like this, just like me. And they pour their hearts out, just like me, right here on this network. Nothing but truth, nothing but heart, nothing but real. And that's where that money would go. That's what that money would do. All right. I want to go through a little bit of this lexicon because you hear these words. You'll hear it from the best. Books are out there, publications are out there, other radio programs are out there, TV programs are out there. And they talk about these futurists, philosophers, evolutionary cyberneticists. Oh, you're going to hear it all. You're going to see beautiful people, much more better looking than me. And they're going to be sending it out there. What is that you're saying, Mr. Producer? If you want to see who you are going head to head with on TalkStream Live website, they will list you according to current audience size. Okay, I could probably do that, but I don't really care who I'm going to head with. I only care about the audience because you are going to go tell your friends, and your friends are going to tell their friends. That's called viral. You know who's in control of that? You are. Not me, not YouTube, certainly not Revolution Radio. You are. So let's go with these words. The first one is a word that's called cognoectasis. Oh yeah, it's a big word. It's cognitive ecstasy. You know what this is? Yeah, it's basically a group high, okay? It's ecstatic understanding. And it can be defined as electrifying celebration of extreme psychical pleasure. When a new skill is mastered or something new is learned, feeding the human imagination. And this kind it can cause things to go viral as long as they're not suppressed. But the Darwinian model of evolution has assumed that life advances thanks to mutations in genetic code. That's the Darwinian model. Every single time something divides, there's a little mutation. There's a little environmental nudge that pushes the genetic code. Sometimes it's for good, and sometimes it's for bad. These errors in copying genetic code inadvertently lead to adaptations, and they get passed down to generations if they provide some kind of advantage. A case in point, a single-celled animal that has no mobility. It can't move. It sinks to the bottom of the tank and it dies. It may divide. It may get a chance to breed, and it divides. And if it's also motionless, it's just going to lay on the bottom of the tank and nothing's going to happen. But then one day, one of them divides and it sprouts a little hair on the bottom that just jumps around like this, and all of a sudden the cell is mobile. It can move around in the tank. You see, this is a mutation that gives the cell an advantage. It can now avoid toxins. It can find food. It can find a mate. It can move around to better water, greener pastures. So these kinds of mutations give it an advantage in society. Humans have two things going for them. First of all, they're an inherently sentient being. It means that they can decide on their own what they want to do about their desires. This is what makes us different than the angels. Angels do not have desires. Angels have no will of their own. They have given their will over to whatever entity it is that they've assigned their allegiance. If it's God, then they're an angel of God. If it's Lucifer, then they're an angel of the devil. But they have no will of their own. They just follow orders. Immensely powerful beings, but they don't have a will of their own. Angels fall when they express that desire. And we have certainly throughout history examples of fallen angels. But humans are a little bit different. Humans have desire. And it means that desire can turn into passions. It can turn into appetites. I'm hungry. I'm horny. I'm thirsty. I want to get drunk. I want to sleep. All the want. It's all id. It's just driven by raw desire. You see it when you look at millennials, when you look at Bernie's mob. His millennial mob. These are people that are driven by their passions. They overeat. They pierce their bodies. They paint themselves. Whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter if it has permanent effect or not. I'm going to squirt blue dye into the whites of my eyes. I don't care if I risk blindness. I want to do it. I'm just saying, they just have no self-control. That self-control we call the ego. The ego is like the rider of the horse, okay? The id is the horse. It's ready to gallop. It's ready to jump a fence, pull a plow. It's ready to run and kick and fart and do whatever. But the ego is the rider. It kind of controls the horse. And the superego is the conscience of the rider. You know what? I don't think I'm going to put that fishing lure in my eyebrow because it's going to have long-lasting effects. I don't think I'm going to put that gauge in my ear and make my ear, really big like a Aboriginal ear because it might have a long-lasting effect. I don't think I'm going to put that tattoo on the side of my face or up here on my neck where it'll show above my collar because it might affect, the way I can provide for my kids later if I decide to have kids. I'm not going to mutilate my body that way. So this is the superego, the conscience. I'm not going to hurt that person. I'm not going to steal that money. I'm not going to sandbag my time on my time clock because it's the wrong thing to do. Society has to have that superego in there, or it will fail. It will collapse into chaos. But that traditional mutation-based model of evolution, it's transformed as of late, because we're now not talking about physical modifications. We don't care if you run faster, if you can jump buildings in a single bound. No, we have a much more advanced society than that. It's more electric, it's more networked, and this means that our evolution has to take place on a networked level. And that's what we're going to talk about at the top of the hour. We'll take a quick break in about 25 seconds. Won't last but about 3 minutes. You YouTubers just hang out. You can listen to it or chill or go get an adult beverage if you want. And we'll be back right after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this. Okay, I think we're through the break. Let me go ahead and come back in, bring this back on, and we will continue with America Free Radio. So I'm so glad that you are here and that you're patient and wait through those messages. Because we're simulcasting, it gets a little bit difficult for the YouTubers. The stream from Revolution Radio on the freedomslips.com network. That goes out to an audio audience through TalkStream Live. Now, the interesting thing about TalkStream Live is there are a lot of other services to play out on there. You got Mark Levin, and you got, all those InfoWars, and right up there, Blaze TV. And right after Blaze TV is America Free Radio. Still waiting for the break music to end. I thought it ended at 9:01, but we'll just wait. Studio will let me know. Okay, now we're back. Okay, so now we're not talking about the break music on Revolution Radio on the freedomslip.com network, but TalkStream Live goes out through a variety of feeds, TuneIn and other apps that are out there. And America Free Radio is right behind Blaze TV. So we're this close to passing them up. And the only people that can make that happen is you. So I want to talk a little bit about epigenetics. I know you know what epigenetics is, but it's such a techno-cultural term. And it gets misused by a lot of people, and it's part of the word salad that I was talking about. It's become big in the news recently, and a lot of other podcasters like to use that word, but I'm going to take it apart for you. We usually define, personality as individual differences in characteristic patterns of thinking, like feeling and behaving and the way we express ourselves. That's our personality. In nature versus nurture, it's been heavily contested for a long, long time. And I have several other sources coming in and text coming in as well. As to how our personality is formed. And I want to talk a little bit about that because, 17th century philosopher John Locke, he was convinced that the human mind was a blank slate at birth, a concept first introduced by Aristotle. He said that the human mind is an empty vessel, but that all knowledge is innate. It means that if you sat in a room by yourself with no outside influence, you would eventually come to all knowledge on your own. It was experience that formed personality, they argued. In the 1930s, evolutionary biologist C.H. Waddington coined this term called epigenetics, which now refers to the study of changes in organisms that are caused by modification of gene expression rather than alteration of the genetic code itself. One of the things that we realized as we began studying genetics caused by DNA, that the human DNA, Human Genome Project, came after animal genome projects. So we studied primates for a while, and we identified a number of gene pairs in the primates. My brother was chairman of physiology at Johns Hopkins for a number of years and ran this project. If you got an MD or a PhD from Johns Hopkins, you went before his desk. That's where my brother sat. And I don't know everything about it because obviously I am not a molecular biologist and he is, but I will tell you that they made some assumptions that humans, because we are so complex and we're so wonderful, that we would have more gene pairs than the ape. And that is not what they discovered. What they discovered actually is the human has about half the gene pairs of a primate. And it led to a lot of head scratching in the molecular biological community, because at the end of the day, when you're talking about molecular biology, all biology is molecular. And what we realized is that gene pairs have to make a choice of a wide variety of proteins that they make, because genes are made by proteins, or proteins are made by genes, I'm sorry. So the genes are actually the pattern. It's the menu that allows this unfolding and refolding to create the proteins. The proteins are what make up the human body. All of the proteins that run our complete physiology are made by the genetic material inside each cell. Generally speaking, once it gets set, that's pretty much what it's going to make. Generally speaking, it can change over time. What in the heck makes it change? Well, it turns out it's the environment. Stupid. And what makes up the environment? Well, it's how much water you get, how much sunshine you get, what temperature you're exposed to, what's your salt intake, what is the toxins you're exposed to, pollution. It also, as it turns out, because they studied thousands of pairs of identical twins, it also is the soul within, the spirit within the person, the personality. The personality. Even though you have genetically identical beings, they're dressed the same, they eat the same for most of their life, they live in the same house, they go to the same school, they're in the same class, they see the same people, they're exposed to the same toxins, and not until later in life do they actually separate. But what we realize is that long before they separate, they begin to diverge. The expression, like I was saying, the expression of that genetics, not the code itself, not the genetic code itself, but the expression, the alteration of the proteins that the genes make, that's what changes. That's what changes. And it relates to one of three types of memory I talk about in my book, Remembering the Future. Let me go put my book rotation up there again. Those of you that are listening on audio, you don't see this. But if you are watching this on YouTube Live, which is easy to do by going to youtube.com/Brooks Agnew. Everything is Brooks Agnew. You should follow me on social media just because it's good for your health, okay? Everything is Brooks Agnew. Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, We Go When We Go All, USA.life, Minds, Gab, everything is Brooks Agnew. You find a social media, you put in Brooks Agnew, I'm there. If you want to go to my website, it's brooksagnew.com. So simple. I make it so easy for you. All of this is available on there. Even if you want to go to Amazon and look me up, I'm there. All my books, all 10 books I have in print are there. And yes, I am working on an 11th book, and it should be hopefully ready by the time we go to Contact in the Desert in May. Oh, that's a big one. It's the biggest UFO disclosure conference in the world, bar none. It is huge, and I'm going to be the keynote speaker there. This year we're talking about asteroid mining. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. If you're anywhere close to Palm Springs in May, you need to go to Contact in the Desert. It is going to be epic this year. A huge cut above past years where they have had other speakers. Victoria is really taking it to the next level this year. Yeah, let me just put the patch up here. No, it's not the patch for that, but I'm sure those of you that see The Expanse will know exactly what this is. See that? Yeah. That's the Sirius station. That's the security for the program called The Expanse. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of neat stuff there. So the three types of memory I talk about in the book, there's star memory, which has to do with the planetary alignment during the time of gestation of your human body. Okay, all of the molecules that are used, all the peas and carrots and burgers and everything that are used to build your human body while your mother is carrying you, the genetic pattern, the code that puts together the initial fetus that is going to be your starter body, is all arranged in a specific planetary alignment. It, I think, arbitrarily has something to do with the day that you spit the amniotic fluid out of your nose and start breathing air. My good friend Dr. Turi would say, that is your death, when your umbilical cord is cut and, you are in your body for the first time, full time, that's very significant astrologically speaking. I maintain it has to do with the date of inception, a conception, and all the building of all that molecular material to make up your human body is what is arranged by that star memory. Who's right? I don't know. I'm bigger than he is. Maybe I'm right. But he's very talented, very smart guy. If you ever get a chance to see Dr. Turi, make sure you do. Also, the molecular memory. This comes from your genetics, from your parents. You get half your DNA from your mom and half your DNA from your dad. And when those haploid pairs come together to make your full chromosome, you get, the eyes from your mom and your nose from your dad and your piano playing ability from your grandfather. That molecular memory is undeniable. And there's one more form of memory. I call this light memory. Light memory. Because, see, according to new findings of behavioral epigenetics, dramatic experiences in our past, or even in our recent ancestors' past, they leave molecular lesions to our DNA. Your forebears' traumatic childhoods or exciting lifetime adventures might affect your personality, passing on anxiety, or if you have a fear of close spaces, or an exhilaration while flying, or a propensity to pick up the violin. All of these things come from this light memory. You could say that they're molecular lesions, but I think it goes beyond that, because there's a passion, there is expression in the genes that is not in the genetic code. It's not in the molecules, it's in the expression of it. Our experiences, and maybe those of our ancestors, are never really gone, even if they might have been forgotten. They become a part of us, a molecular residue holding firm to our genetic scaffolding. I call this light memory because even though the DNA remains the same, but psychological and behavioral tendencies are inherited, okay? We should not rule out the notion that we have had multiple lives, not just the lives of our ancestors, wars that we have been in, loves that we have had, skills that we have learned, things that we mastered in past lives, those experiences, those satisfactions, even those fears and those phobias that come forward with us. If you have given more than a moment's worth of deep thought about this, you already know that you bring experience forward with you through time, to this point, to this life. You already know that. Some of this is good experience in the form of skills and abilities that you have mastered. And some of it is not good. You may have developed bad habits. You may have brought forward with you limiting scripts that cause you to repeat failures, cause you to, always find men that are abusive to you, always find women that are narcissists, or these are patterns that you have built up over eons of time. Maybe not all on this world. Our cognitive abilities, sometimes referred to as fluid intelligence, can be evaluated when we encounter new information or new novel situations. We haven't faced it before. This is new to us. It's a new place, a new thing, a new challenge, a new a new threat to us. Our genes do exert a heavy influence on the overall cognitive potential, but these environmental factors, either active or inactive, they suppress or enhance our genetic abilities. Our genes, for instance, can very quickly change us to adapt to this new situation. I'm serious. I went through life having to wear glasses my entire life. I couldn't read this. There's no way I could read this. I had to wear glasses from the time I was probably 12 years old. And then at 52 years old, actually on August 17th, I laid my reading glasses down for the last time. Now, I still use cheaters on the computer because that text over there on Skype is very small and it's a long ways away. So I can read it sometimes and sometimes I can't. But this text on the screen here, that's no problem for me now. Why? I don't know. I do know I had this amazing experience at James Gilliland's ranch. Those of you who were there, or you've listened to archives of this program, or you've read the book Remembering the Future, you know what this experience was. I weighed 252 pounds on August 16th, 2006. And I was not in shape. Not good. I had the dad bod and would kind of resign to it, actually. But after that experience, within a month and a half, I lost 40 pounds. Yeah, 40 pounds fell off of me like it wasn't even mine. And I went forward in life a new person. I changed. In fact, my 4 kids once told me shortly thereafter, "What did you do with our dad?" I really changed. And the expression of my genes changed. I'm now 64 years old. I'm 64. I don't act or feel or look a day over 45. I have no wrinkles in my face. My skin expert that I go to, he looks me over once a year. Looks me over. He says, "I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. Your skin is the skin of a 45-year-old man." I'm just telling you, my genes expressed different proteins. When I was a kid, my grandparents were 65 years old. You know what? They were old. They were old. They hobbled. They were wrinkled. They had false teeth. They were old. I am not old, and I'm the same age that they were. Okay, in extreme documented cases of, let's call it, feral children, wild children, humans who lived isolated from human contact from very young age, with little or no experience of human care, they really didn't have developed language. They didn't have developed social skills. Dina Sanichar, the Indian wolf boy who was raised by wolves. I personally was raised by wolves, but in high school. In the forests of India, it's believed to be the inspiration behind Rudyard Kipling's famous work, The Jungle Book. By the way, I've been to Kipling's house. Pretty cool. Yeah, in England, outside of where is that again? Send that to me in the chat. What was that place we visited in England that was Kipling's house? She'll put it in the chat. I'll get it. The vast majority of wild children have tremendous difficulties reintegrating into human culture. They lack these basic social skills and interest in the human activity around them. So mind and consciousness are two different but somewhat overlapping terms related to phenomenology of our experiential reality. Yes, Brighton. I told you. Brighton in England. That's where Rudyard Kipling's house is. Both of these terms, they mean different things to different people. And what I want to talk about tonight is consciousness. What most people would agree upon is that the mind is organized mental activity that is formed from the substructure of consciousness and further made possible by memory and information processing capabilities of the brain. To be clear, the mind does not seem to reside in the body. It resides kind of in a bio cloud. I don't mean it follows us around where we go, but in all of the biological measurement that we have tried to do to try to locate the mind, playing with different drugs, putting electrostim in the brain, we still are not really sure what the mind is. We know that it exists. We know that it has great powers that we can't explain. Communicates over long distances, communicates through time. It is able to figure out things, even though that person has never been exposed to any of the tools or resources necessary to figure that thing out. Perfect example is mathematicians that have dreams, and they, instead of deriving math, they somehow express entirely new mathematical concepts. Not only did they never get exposed to any of those in this lifetime, nobody has. It's totally new, and it's raw, finished mathematics. It is not derived mathematics. Normally, we start with the simple and we move to the complex. We take formulas and plug formulas into formulas. We use functions and irrational and imaginary numbers to create formulas to understand relationships between energy and time and various things like that. But this is not. This is entirely new mathematics. An idealist philosopher, myself, I have also downloaded unified field theory and ideas that have scarcely been expressed in humanity. Fundamental, transdimensional ideas that just don't exist yet. Inventions, things that I've seen working, but they don't exist yet. They have not been invented yet, not in this reality. Consciousness is this awareness, and you have a local consciousness and you have an extended consciousness. The subconscious runs at a very fast speed. The average person, I think, subconscious is 25 times the speed of the calculating ability of the conscious mind. Some people have been able to blend or sort of knit their subconscious mind with their conscious mind to create an ability to recall information, patterns, relationships, transitory relationships between seemingly unrelated sciences, like between math and music, although it can be argued there is a relationship between those two, but between, say, botany and poetry, or between oceanography and architecture. You see, these things aren't really related to one another, even on an imaginary scale, but somehow people can knit these things together and create using those two disciplines as their tools. And it takes this subconscious mind blended with the conscious mind. Your mind is such a magnificent everything, okay? It basically encompasses all your reality, your thoughts, your emotions, your ideas, your feelings, your beliefs, your intentions, your attitudes, your desires, your motivations, and pretty much every other aspect of your life, including the food that you like and the music that you like listening to, and the sexual positions you like. Everything is all blended together in the mind. Your behavior and your actions, they're definitely influenced by your mind. What you dwell on, you will eventually express. That's why I always say control the I and you control the mind. because there are only really three weaknesses in humanity, right? There is the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. Those three things lead to collapse of the human condition, both individually and socioeconomically. So if you control the eye, you can control those three things. Does that mean that you censor yourself? No. It means that your mind can choose what you're going to dwell on. Lots of things march across the stage all day long, but it's the ones we focus our camera on, the things we dwell on, that we pour energy into, that become corporal. They begin to build resonance, and when they build resonance, they become big, powerful beasts of thoughts, and you will eventually act on them. So control your eye, and you will control your mind. Your beliefs, they're influenced mostly by you, somewhat by your environment. I mean, you could have a whole bunch of people around you telling you what you are or what you are not. Do you believe it? You know what? It's your choice. People beating you up all day long telling you you're fat, or you're ugly, or worse, you're stupid, or you're ignorant, or you'll never be anything. You can deny all that. I mean, my parents told me I'd never amount to anything. So what? I did anyway. In fact, people ask me all the time, how did you get to be such a great dad? And I say, well, I had the perfect examples. I had wonderful parents of examples of what not to be. I just took everything my parents did. I did exactly the opposite. And I turned out to be a great dad. So I want to talk to you about this term, the chrysalis conjecture. Have you ever heard of it? Oh, that's a big word salad. Now, I don't think little Peter Buttcrack's going to use that word, but you're going to hear it. It's one of the possible solutions to the Fermi paradox. And the Fermi paradox is that there are multiple universes, multiple expressions, multiple existences of the same person. The transcension hypothesis by John M. Smart. It proposes that, and I'm going to just quote this, evolutionary processes guide all sufficiently advanced civilizations increasingly into what may be called inner space, the domain of very small scales of space, time, energy, and matter. That's what we call in science STEM. Computationally optimal substrate of accelerating observation. In other words, let's just put this simply. All advanced civilizations, invariably, they leave their cradle universe, the one that we, live in day to day, for virtual worlds, dimensionally, of their own design. In other words, I have been sent as a consultant into plants that were on fire. I don't mean there were flames coming to the roof, but I mean everything had turned to crap. They were getting ready to have their molds pulled by customers. They were going to get ready to lose millions and have to lay people off. They call me in because their quality department has thrown their hands up and they quit. Really, I went there. All the desks were empty. The plant manager's ready to hang himself. He's already, putting his resume out there. The comptroller is looking for the police to show up any moment. And they call me in. In other words, the place has turned to crap. Now, I could walk in there and I could be influenced by my environment. Wow, this is really a bad gig. Nobody expects me to succeed, so I guess I will fail. No. I make my own virtual world inside that world. Inside that place where it has all turned to crap. The very first thing that I did when I got there is I emptied all the desks, all the dividers and everything out of that office that had the quality department in it, and I stripped and waxed the floor. It looks sparkling, brand new, clean. I replaced all the old dingy light bulbs in the ceiling. They were like soft white or cool white, whatever, and I put daylight bulbs in there. It was bright. And then I put all the desks back in and all the dividers back in a different arrangement. totally new environment. And I moved in. And then I grabbed the phone and I started hiring quality engineers. In a week's time, I had more quality engineers in there, and we started through the process. Within 6 months, we had turned that plant around, lowered their administrative cost to less than 2.5%. That doesn't mean that we laid people off. It means we made more money. We went to the customers. We found the quality issues. We solved the quality issues, and we won new business. So we're taking in more, we're making less scrap, and everything is happy. In a year's time, that place was ready to sell, and we sold it to Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross is the current Commerce Secretary. That Wilbur Ross. That's the guy that came in and bought this plant. Why? Because it was ready to be bought. It was no longer on fire. It was now profitable. It was now ready to be acquired. And that's what I do. And that's my skill. That's my ability. Source, perhaps a singularity itself, right? This term source. It drew all matter in the universe to it, right? It became a singularity. Everything was void around it, but it was source by itself. Mature civilizations invariably leave their initial bubble universe by creating artificial black hole conditions, computationally optimal density, dimensionality, for example, the virtual worlds we're talking about. Or in contrast, we leave the black hole conditions to float freely at low velocity through the universe. You know, one thing we know about black holes is that they're spinning at their maximum speed. They have to in order to conserve momentum. So if you think about it, at the speed of light, distance turns to zero, right? Time disappears. In other words, mass becomes infinity. Either way, you want to work it out. Mass becomes infinity or distance becomes zero. It approaches zero anyway. So at the speed of light, if you're on this photon spaceship and you're traveling through space at the speed of light, the one thing that you realize is that there's no path before you. Everything is now. Everything is now. That is the condition of the universe still at this very moment. Well, how can that be? Because when I walk outside and I look up at the stars, I'm looking at light years away. You know why? Because it's human consciousness that has slowed the universe down so that we can behold it. We stopped the spinning so the ice skater could stretch her arms out and the universe could slow down and we could perceive distance. It's the change, this chrysalis conjecture. It's the change of our observation. So if the consciousness is what creates our reality, just like in the recently released video game No Man's Sky or Star Trek's Holodeck, that's a good one. Any observer really is procedurally generated, self-consistent, and casually driven, then I say that the rest of our universe, our light sphere, would look surprisingly lifeless to us unless we put our intelligence into it. And that's where we get to this conscious instant hypothesis. It states that conscious experience boils down to a stream of realized outcomes within the 5-dimensional probabilistic space. Okay, that's what we make it. Now, we can do one of two things here. We can let the universe make us, which sadly a lot of people do. You can see them on the streets of San Francisco right now. Or we can make the universe. And I think that's where you are. I think that's where you are, and that's why you're listening tonight. As Max Planck once said, science cannot solve the ultimate mystery of nature. And that is because, in the last analysis, We ourselves are part of the mystery that we're trying to solve. We're inside the universe that we're trying to perceive. In other words, if you get right down to it, we are co-creators. We are part of the average reality that we all share. And it's a large population. I don't know how many souls there are in the universe. Maybe there are 1 trillion of us. Maybe there's 10 trillion. I don't know. Here on this earth, we have 7 billion alive. 7 billion is a pretty good population. Statistically speaking, it would take a hell of a lot of energy to shift the average reality of 7 billion people. It would take one of two things. It would either take one very powerful soul, a Jesus, a Buddha, somebody like that, to come into the society and make a massive statement that would shift the average reality. Or we could convince 100 of our friends, 1 million, 1 billion, 1 million or 1 billion people on this planet with the same idea that's slightly different than the average reality. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to shift the average reality. Yes, you will. We are not formed by the universe. We form the universe. And that's where the concept of cyber bliss engineering comes from. This is the creation of custom virtual paradises. I don't mean fooling yourself. I mean really manifesting a new world, or a better world, or a changed world. Think of it. For how long? Hundreds of years we have been in a permanent war culture. We have been. Yes, the bankers have pretty much driven it because they make money on it. But humans, really, there are just two types. There are the explorer humans, and there are the warrior humans. Now, in the warrior humans, there are really two types of warrior humans. You have the warrior who enjoys killing men. Sorry to say, they are out there. They are born that way. They come to this world ready to kill, and they get old enough to do it. They do it. And the other warrior being are the ones who stand between them and everyone else. They will stand and fight. The difference is after the war. After the war, the one that stands and fight to defend, they will lay their weapons down. They will bury their weapons. They will turn their weapons into plowshares. The other will just wait till the next war. They'll wait until it's big enough or mean enough or the opportunity presents itself. And so we, for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, we have perpetuated this permanent war culture. It was once said the sun never sets on the British Empire. That's the global syndicate. That's the global syndicate. And that British Empire, yeah, it traded. But first, it went to war. It conquered. It conquered. And what is the difference? The difference is that there is an existence or non-existence of the wilderness. In other words, the non-warlike human, the explorer, when the armies come, they will just leave. They'll go to the wilderness. They'll get on a wooden ship, sail across the ocean to the frontier, and they will build a cabin out of the wood that's there, and they will plant their seeds in the land that's there, and they will live in peace. And they will have their babies, and they will build their churches, and they will build their stores and their ranches and their farms, and they will live until the warriors come again. And then they will move west until there is no more wilderness, which is where we are now. Now we are at this point where the permanent war culture and the explorer culture are just about as big as one as the other. We have created this new cyber bliss engineering. We have created for ourselves virtual paradises. How did we do that? Well, we used our skills. And if we did not have a wilderness we could travel to, then we have a wilderness that we can imagine to. We connected it to our phones and our computers and our televisions. We have stereos that we walk around with headphones in, and we create our own virtual paradise. This is the wilderness we go to, and eventually the warriors are going to find us. But for now, we are creating our own universe. And we have what is now developing into a cyber human. And we're there. The next generation, my generation, it's an upgrade, okay? When I was a kid, we had a phone that we dialed with our finger, and it was connected with a curly cord, and you could only walk about as far as the kitchen doorway with the phone until your grandparents would say, "Hey, get off the phone. You're running up the long distance bill." Yeah, what's long distance? You see, we've changed. We've changed. The next generation, they're hardwired to it. They grew up with it. They don't know what clockwise means. They're hardwired to it. They are cyber humans. Some futurists say that by the year 2030, we will have achieved an artificial intelligent human level that is part of our lives. We're creating a new race of cyberhumans. Now, this is where I want you to use a lot of caution, because in the word salad, there are things that people talk about called the hive mind. Okay? I want you to use caution here as we approach this, because this AI singularity, it should happen around circa 2045 or so, maybe earlier. It's the emergence of the AI supercharged global brain. Okay? This globally distributed mind based on computing and communication technologies, digital Gaia they call it, in which humans and AI minds both participate. It would collectively form a higher level of intelligence and awareness. And it would go beyond the individual intelligences. And I think this is where we need to express some caution here, because there are people out there that are talking about the collective. You know what I'm talking about? The collective, or the hive mind, and that this is what we should be striving for. It's a drive by some intellectuals to combine our minds into one. It sounds, very wonderful, like an eye single to the glory of God. But what kind of sensation would you experience when your brain is directly connected to this global hive mind? Sublime amplification, cognitive ecstasy, kind of like a matrix? I want you to understand the difference in the human conditions that are most crucial. Remember, a truly gifted lie is made from truth. No sentient being will follow a lie very long without it. Think about what is being formed here. The claim that the best experiences are actually shared experiences. The claim is that what really magnifies our human experience is when we share that experience. That's why we go to a movie theater. That's why we go to a stadium. That's why we go to rave parties. That's why we form communities and families and companies and other social groups. That sounds true enough, doesn't it? But actually, exactly the opposite is true. The dark forces of the universe want to manifest a future where there are no more individuals. That's what you're hearing from the left right now. That's what the Bernies and the little Peter Buttcracks and the Klobuchars, that's what they're doing. No more individuals, only groups, only groups and subgroups, all divided up by religion and color and sexual orientation and economic status and education status, all divided up. A nail sticking up is hammered down, okay? There's no room for nonconformance or independent thought. There is no freedom or liberty to be yourself. They cannot make this kind of future without you. They need your energy to make that future happen. They want a collective. Use extreme caution, okay, when you hear this term, collective. A collection is okay. A collection of individuals, all rah-rah, all cheering or all crying, or some cheering and some crying, but not a collective. They want a collective smile. They want a collective obedience to social rules. They want everyone to have the same reaction to their movie. Even though we are all here on Earth at one time, it absolutely does not mean we are destined to become one global mind, so to speak. Okay? In their world, you will always perceive yourself as an individual, but you will actually be an integral part of a global consciousness. You won't be an individual anymore. You're going to abdicate your individuality to someone else. You're not going to own property. You're not going to own a car. You're not going to be successful. In fact, you won't be anything except what they want you to be. This novelty-producing, complexity-engendering universe will create other various layers of reality and entities to differentiate yourself, but will ultimately to network with. In a way, your consciousness is going to kind of snowball into this global mind, this single collective mind. This is the core of the new AI. This is the pinnacle goal of the new AI. You have to upthink your mind into the global brain infrastructure, which is a cloud-based cognitive model via ingestible nanobots or other neurotechnologies. You saw Elon Musk talk about this chip that you could put into the brain and connect these electrodes, and you'll be able to recall everything on the internet instantly. Wow, what a great way to pass tests. You would never have to actually go to school because all knowledge would now be at your fingertips. But you would also be hooked to an electronic leash. This would be your neural interface connecting you to the web. Everything you think will be adjusted by the master program to bring you all into one compliant frequency. Thus, the whole web, with its vast repository of, well, I was going to say knowledge, but it could be propaganda. Yeah. And instant data sharing capabilities will become your synthetic neocortex, kind of like exocortex. You will then be this new hybrid being, part machine, part living flesh, and then you'll have a unique, subjective, perceptual experience. We're already hybrid thinking beings anyway, they claim, right? I mean, our right and left cerebral hemispheres thinking in unison, left brain and right brain. I mean, I welded mine together a long time ago, but some of you are on one side or on the other, as they say. And then we'll have our technologically extended mind, according to Andy Clark's extended mind hypothesis. You will be a billion-fold augmented you. As one global mind, you'll be entitled to some kind of subjective perception, of course, but it'll be like the Matrix. So you'll feel real, And it'll feel challenging, but you will never come to any harm or want for something to eat. You'll never have a student loan. You'll never have to worry about anything. Everything will be taken care of for you by the state. So logically speaking, your personality, your identity and intelligence, it's going to be greatly enriched to the point that you can remember your multiple birthday parties and sexual partners and feelings of love. As a super being, you can always surpass unwanted memories or challenges or pains. You can always surpass those. You can always suppress pain and shortcomings and weaknesses. As a super being, you'll have globally distributed intelligence, and you may perceive many things at one time. Does that sound like heaven to you? It sounds like hell to me. I would rather non-conform. I would rather walk through the streets naked. I would rather play music out of tune just because I wanted to. I would rather be the individual. I can tell you that the purpose of life is to evolve. It's to pass on the acquired knowledge that we have gained to the next generation or to the next us. That's why we become mortal. We are eternal beings having this mortal experience, to be sure. But it's the mortal experience that makes us grow. We don't grow while we're out there disembodied, floating through the cosmos. There's no time. There's no pain. There's no toe stepping. There's no mystery. There's no chasm or mountain or ocean or challenge. If we want to know it, it's there. That is not heaven. This is heaven. Where you are right now is heaven. You know why? Because we can reach. And we could reach together if we want to. I just hope, beyond hope, in the last minute of tonight's program, that we can transcend this permanent war culture. We have a leader that's willing to do that if we will support him, and I think we will. I want you to go out and look for the good in other people every day, and I want you to help it grow. I want you to seek after it. I want you to pay attention to the people that you interact with every single day. The girl that brings up your coffee in the morning, the person that you get within 10 feet of. I want you to project as much love as you can to that person. And I want you to do it every day, all day. And if you do that, you're going to help save the planet. Because we're there. We're right on the threshold of this evolution. Do I want us to become this super AI enhanced being? Or do I want us to affect the universe ourselves? I think the latter. We are evolving, but I want us to evolve into that kind of being. And so the 100,000 people that are out there listening on Revolution Radio tonight and the 56 people that are currently on YouTube Live, just do that. And if you want to hear this stuff live, see me in New Mexico, April 2nd through 5th at the Human Origins Conference. I promise you, it'll be a lecture you'll never forget. I'm Brooks Agnew. This is America Free Radio, coming to you on the Revolution Radio Network on freedomslips.com, saying, peace, Earth Explorers. Now go and do. We'll see you next week right here. We might have 45 seconds. So maybe it was a little anticlimactic. But you can always reach me at Agnew at x2-radio.com. Agnew at x2-radio.com. And don't forget to follow me. Every single social media known to man, Brooks Agnew. And brooksagnew.com is my website. All my philosophy, poetry, books, everything is there. And you can follow everything that I'm doing there. We'll see you next week. Be good to one another.